Hey YouTube, I'm Ali. Welcome to Gaming Indoors, a channel dedicated to helping you make games. Now, today we're going to be looking at first player advantage, what exactly that means, why some people think it's a problem, and how we could possibly mitigate it. But first, some housekeeping. Very quickly, I want to start off by saying there's only a few days left now until I draw a close to the voting on how we develop our board game. If you're new to the channel, go check out a previous video, I'll link that up here somewhere, and see exactly what I'm talking about. If you're not new to the channel, and you haven't yet voted, I urge you, please go and do so, because it's your votes that will count towards how we shape the game going forward. I'm going to close voting on Sunday, so just a few days left. The second bit of housekeeping is just a quick thank you. The reason we're doing this video is because of some feedback I got from Ernice. I am terrible with names. Give me a second. Ernius, there we go. I want to say a quick thank you to him. He made a suggestion about something that I could go and investigate, and of course I couldn't help myself. I've gone and done that. It's terrible English. If there are any topics that you want investigating in terms of board game design, please do let me know in the comments below. I genuinely do try my best to read them and answer them, and I'm always keen to learn something new. There's a ton of stuff I'm sure I've still got to get my head round in order to be a better game designer. There we go. Now, enough of that, let's move on. What exactly is first player advantage? Time for an Ali definition. I'm going to define first player advantage as the benefit, the unfair benefit, a player will receive for being able to take actions or turns ahead of their fellow players. I think this benefit comes from having a wider choice of options of play. And I think it's a phenomenon that's associated with games that have a limited resource of some kind. And by limited resource, I mean things like space on a board, or maybe cards in a particular deck. If you've got that particular card, no one else will be able to have it. If you have the choice ahead of everyone else to get that card, maybe that can be construed as being unfair. With that in mind, I went out and grabbed as many games as I could. In each case, I was trying to identify what the game designer had done to mitigate the problem of first player advantage. When I drew all my data together, I realized that there were more or less three separate approaches that could be taken. The first approach was to penalize the first player or in some way reward the other players. The game Troyes takes a direct approach to this and forces the first player to deal with invaders and marauders, sacrificing some of their valuable dice before the action round begins. An example of where the second player is rewarded can be seen in the game Go. Here, points are allocated simply for playing second. Those points are called Comey points. Other designers do a similar thing by handing out resources. In the game Samurai Sword, extra action cards are handed out to everyone except the first player. So I think the first player receives, say, 4 action cards, the next player will receive 5, and then 6, and then 7, etc. Agricola does something similar with gold. I think the first player receives 7 gold, the next one receives 8, then 9, then 10, etc. But by far the most common way that I could see that a game designer was giving a reward to their players or penalizing their first player was by rewarding them with extra time at the end of the game. And the way they did this was not to end the game when the victory condition was met. So the first player to get to 15 points in Splendor, for example, didn't end the game. Instead, he triggered one more round, the final round. So everyone else got to have a go. You would then add up the points and see whether or not you had won. I think the first example I came across for this was actually in Viticulture, but Splendor works as well. The second approach was to maintain the number of choices that each player had. If you remember, the benefit I said that the first player had was that he had a greater range of choices to make. Now, when it came to a deck, that was pretty straightforward. If your game has a deck draw, all you're doing is replacing the card that's taken with another card. Again, Splendor, Ticket to Ride, both of these do that quite well. There's a number of cards visible, you pick one, you draw it, the next player, and then you immediately refresh that card. I think games like Paladins, you refresh it at the end of the round, so the choice does narrow, but there's some other mitigations there. Where I thought this became quite difficult was when you were trying to solve a problem of limited space on a board. There you are limiting the choices by taking a space. Games like Small World or Architects did allow you to remove a player's pieces from a board and therefore giving you the choice to go there, but it came as a cost. I think the game Ticket to Ride deals with this in a very clever way, though, by allowing a player to lay a train on any track whenever they choose to, regardless of the player order. For me, it's the third approach that's most appealing. Here, rather than mitigating the problem of first player advantage, game designers simply embraced it, encouraging their players to try to win the first place and actually claim the benefit therein. The reason I like this is because it adds another layer of strategy and skill. In fact, your turn order, the positioning of you in the game, now becomes part of that strategy to win. Games like the Game of Thrones or Spartacus have a bidding mechanism in place where you bid to go first, second, or third, for example. What I liked about this is that you are using resources to bid that could also be used to do other actions in the game. So again, it became integral to the overall strategy of winning. A game like Nova Luna or The Road to Tokaido, it wasn't the first player who actually got the benefit, it was the last player. And so often you are making decisions on your turn to try to position yourself such that you would go last and therefore reap the rewards of having a bigger choice next round. Again, I love the idea of having a decision that the player makes around whether they want to go first and reap the benefits of what's going to come up next round, or try to concentrate on what's happening in the immediate round. So those were the three approaches I saw. What are my conclusions? Well, the reality is that, like most things in life, no one game had one particular approach. In fact, it was a mix of all three. I saw many games that had elements of all of those things, and that's probably the approach to take. How do I know which approach will work and won't work? It's the same old, of course, and that is by testing and getting feedback. Does your game feel like you're giving your player an advantage? When you play test over and over again, does the first player always win? Or does the first player to reach the victory condition always win? If so, you probably need to add some balancing elements in there by one of those three approaches. Anyway, I hope that overview of first player advantage was of some use to you. If I've missed something, please do let me know. Drop me a quick note and I'll do my best to respond. Until next time, folks, take care.